It didn't start with suspicion. It started with evidence. And not the kind you dig for, not a text message, not a hotel receipt. No, it was a small, silent thing. It was a ring slipping off a finger. That was all it took. I still remember the feeling in my chest when I saw it happen, the way a wave of cold crawled from my spine to my stomach. But I should back up. Laura invited me to that gallery opening, technically. She sent a calendar invite like it was a work meeting. VIP night, she typed in the notes. Dress nice. It's important. No hearts. No, can't wait to see you. No kiss emoji like she used to. Just practical. She'd been immersed in that world for a while. Art, gallery circles, wine tastings with curators I couldn't remember the names of. I supported it. First, I really did. She'd always loved color, motion, ideas. I thought this was her becoming who she was meant to be. I thought I was part of that. But over time, things shifted. Slowly, like paint drying, until one day you realize the whole room is a different color. That night, I came straight from work. I changed into my best blazer in the office bathroom. Barely had time to shave. Traffic was hell. I walked in 5 minutes late, but I spotted her right away. Laura, standing by some mixed media piece that looked like melted clocks. Her arm draped loosely around the back of a tall man in a navy jacket. She looked radiant. Not in a poetic, nostalgic way, literally radiant. Her face lit up when he leaned in and whispered something. She threw her head back and laughed like no one else existed. When the gallery lights bounced off her hair and the curve of her neck, I realized I hadn't seen her laugh like that in months. Maybe longer. I stayed at the edge of the room for a bit, letting myself fade into the background. I wasn't spying. I was observing. Or at least that's what I told myself. They were drinking something pale from wide glasses. Riesling, maybe. She leaned in every time she spoke to him, her fingers brushing his wrist once, twice. Too familiar to be accidental. He leaned into her space like he had permission, like he belonged there, and she didn't push him back. That's when it began to sting. Because I'd seen that version of her before. The effortless charm. The low, deliberate tone. The playful, private jokes. I used to be on the receiving end of that. They stood side by side at the installation, discussing something. I couldn't hear what. She gestured toward the piece and tapped the man's arm with her fingers again. Then her left hand lifted slightly, and something caught the light. Her wedding ring. It slipped off like a marble rolling off a table, clinked once on the floor, then rolled end over end, like it was trying to flee. It landed exactly halfway between me and them. No one else noticed, except him. He moved first, bent down, scooped it up like it wasn't the first time he'd done it. My feet didn't move. I wanted to speak. I wanted to say her name, but I didn't even have a voice just then. Maybe I wanted to see what she'd do. She didn't turn toward me. She didn't look surprised. She just sighed and said, with that same airy voice she used when people offered her unsolicited advice, "You know I take it off when it gets warm." Then, as if I were the one out of line, she added, "And you could have sat beside me if you hadn't come in with that face." That face. I don't know what stunned me more, the line or the casualness of it. The way she deflected everything in front of this man. Like she needed to disown me in public just to protect the moment. My mouth went dry. My throat closed up. I stood there like some awkward +1 while she took the ring. Not from me, her husband, but from him. She slipped it into her purse, not back on her finger. And then, just like that, she kept talking to him. Something about the framing of the piece, I think. It was like I hadn't shown up at all. I'd seen enough. I stepped away quietly, weaving through a crowd of strangers sipping wine and discussing meaning in broken sculptures. I ducked out through a side door into the courtyard, pulled at my collar, tried to breathe. The sound of laughter floated out behind me. Hers. I could tell. I leaned on the edge of the stone planter, pretending to examine my phone. But really, I was asking myself the question I hadn't wanted to ask for weeks. Was I already the outsider in my own marriage? It's funny. You never expect betrayal to feel quiet. You think it'll crash through the door with screaming and thrown plates. But in real life, it's subtle. It's watching someone's hand fall just a little too comfortably on someone else's back. It's the way your name disappears from their mouth when they're laughing. It's the moment their wedding ring ends up on the floor and they don't flinch. Later that night, Laura acted like nothing had happened. "You left early," she said while taking off her earrings in front of the mirror. "Yeah," I replied, sitting on the edge of the bed. She glanced at me through the mirror and said, "It was a good night. You should try smiling more. It wouldn't KLLU. That was it. That was all she said. And me? I nodded. I didn't ask about the ring. I didn't ask who the man was. I didn't ask why she hadn't looked at me once while she stood 2 feet away. Because deep down, I already knew the answers. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed beside her, eyes fixed on the ceiling, listening to the rhythm of her breathing like it was some kind of foreign language, deep, even detached. She turned over in her sleep once, her back to me, and I flinched. Not because of her movement, but because of how normal it felt. How often had she turned away like that without me noticing? Funny how your mind suddenly rewinds the film when the lights come on. Driving to work the next morning, I caught myself gripping the steering wheel tighter than usual. I don't remember what music was playing. I just remember the loop playing in my head. The ring. The man. The smile that wasn't for me. That sentence. "You could have sat beside me if you hadn't come in with that face." The face of a husband trying to understand when he'd stopped being part of the picture. As I sat at a red light downtown, I started cataloging memories. Stuff I'd brushed off before. Stuff I wanted to believe was innocent. The new watch she bought back in October. A minimalist silver thing she never once wore. She had claimed it was in style, but I never saw it again after the week she got it. I had even offered to get the strap adjusted. "Nah, don't bother," she had said. "It's just a vibe thing." A vibe for who? Then there was the gym. She used to jog around the block or go to the community center, simple, routine stuff. But then, out of nowhere, she joined a boutique gym 30 minutes away on the other side of the city. "Their classes are amazing," she told me. "It's become the only thing that keeps me sane lately." I remember being happy for her at the time. She seemed lighter, more energized. I chalked it up to self-care. But now I couldn't stop picturing her slipping her ring into the locker, tying her hair back, and laughing with someone else in between sets. The commute, the mystery soreness, the lingering glow when she got home. The gym was where she went to feel alive. Just not with me. And then there was the phone. Laura never used to be one of those people glued to their screen. We'd curl up on the couch watching reruns and laugh at couples who sat at restaurants tapping on phones instead of talking. Now her phone was always with her. Always. She kept it charging face down in the bathroom at night. Said the light from notifications bothered her. Once, when I brought her a towel during her shower, I caught a glimpse of her screen through the fog. A name I didn't recognize. A heart emoji in the preview. But she reached for the phone too quickly, laughing it off as a work joke. A joke I wasn't in on. I kept driving. Every intersection seemed to open another memory I tried to forget. The time I walked in while she was in the car, talking to someone on speaker. I heard her voice, soft and in asterisk mate. Like a whisper. But the second the door opened, she cut the call short. "Just a client," she told me. "Nothing important." She smiled. I believed her. That smile used to be my compass. But lately, it felt like she was smiling in another language I didn't understand anymore. Even her rhythm had changed. The timing. The way she moved through the house. There was a new quiet around her. Not peaceful, but distant. Like she was measuring her steps to avoid too much interaction. She'd started wearing perfume again. Not the one I knew. The one I bought her for our anniversary last year. Something sharper. Muskier. New. The first time I smelled it on her, she said it was just a sample someone gave her at the gallery. But she wore it again. And again. Always before leaving the house, never when we were staying in. I remember hugging her one night before she left for a last-minute event. And that scent clung to her neck, her collarbone. I didn't say anything, but I stayed up late that night. She came home after midnight, humming a song under her breath. I pretended to be asleep. Back then, I convinced myself it was anxiety talking, that I was just being oversensitive. That doubting your partner was worse than being wrong. But now I understood something I hadn't before. You don't notice absence until it becomes a pattern. And Laura had been disappearing for a while. At work, I couldn't focus. I stared at the same spreadsheet for 20 minutes without typing a thing. My coworker Jason popped his head into my office and asked if I was okay. I told him I just didn't sleep well, which was true. But it wasn't about the sleep. I started going over our conversations from the last few months. How often she answered questions with questions. How her phone always died right before she got home. How she started saying things like, "You're imagining it?" or "Don't be so insecure." When I asked simple things like who she was texting. God, I even remembered the Sunday I suggested a spontaneous weekend trip. Just the two of us. And she **T it down immediately. "There's too much going on right now," she said. "Besides, I don't think a getaway fixes anything." Fixes what? She made me feel like I was the one being dramatic. Like I was chasing ghosts. But now I realized the ghosts had been real. I just hadn't wanted to see them. After work, I drove past the gallery. Not to go in. Just to see it. Maybe to see if he was there. I didn't know his name, just his face. The way he leaned into her like he had a right to. There was no sign of either of them. The windows were dark. I sat in the car a few minutes longer than necessary, engine running, staring through the windshield at nothing. I don't know what I was waiting for. A sign? A confession? A reason to turn around? But nothing came. So I drove home. She wasn't there yet. Her car was gone, the lights were off, and the house felt hollow. I stood in the doorway for a minute, just listening. Not because I expected anything, but because I was afraid I'd forgotten what our home was supposed to sound like. Later, when she walked through the door, she kissed me on the cheek like always. Asked me if I wanted takeout or if she should cook. Just like always, I watched her carefully. Not suspicious, just observant. And for the first time I saw it. She was rehearsing normal. She had become someone who knew how to act like a wife, without actually being one. That night, I watched her sleep again. Her hand was curled around her pillow, not me. Her breathing was still steady, still distant. I lay awake and told myself, this is how it happens. Not with a bang. Not even with a betrayal you catch in real time. It starts with fragments. Disjointed pieces. A scent that isn't familiar. A laugh that isn't yours. A ring on the floor. A stranger's hand moving faster than yours to pick it up. And then it builds, one careless word at a time, until you realize the person beside you is no longer beside you at all. 3 days passed after the gallery incident. We hadn't spoken about it. Not once. Not the ring, not the man, not the way she looked through me like I was part of the furniture. I waited, hoping she'd bring it up. That maybe she'd say, "Hey, about the other night." Or even offer some bland, safe lie to test the waters. But nothing came. The silence wasn't awkward, it was calculated. It was her way of saying, we're not talking about that. So I didn't push. I just watched. That Wednesday, a meeting downtown got canceled last minute. And instead of heading back to the office, I drove home. I wasn't planning to catch anyone. I wasn't even thinking clearly. Maybe I just needed a place to sit and breathe. Someplace that still had a little of me in it. But as I pulled into the driveway, I noticed something off immediately. Shoes. 2 pairs, actually. One was Laura's, kicked off lazily at the bottom of the steps. The other was a pair of men's sneakers I didn't recognize. Not just unfamiliar, wrong. Worn but expensive. Clean soles. Laces still perfectly tied. I stared at them for a full minute before stepping onto the porch. The house was quiet. Not nobody's home quiet, the wrong kind of quiet. A stillness that felt too carefully placed. I stepped through the front door and let it close gently behind me. No TV sounds. No music. Just the low hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. And then I saw it. I had just passed the hallway mirror when I caught the reflection. A fragment of movement from the living room. I took a step back and looked again. She was sitting on the floor, wearing my old college t-shirt, the one she used to borrow when she wanted to feel close on nights I worked late. Her legs were curled to one side, her hair undone and swept over one shoulder like it always did after a shower. But she wasn't alone. That man, the same one from the gallery, sat beside her, one knee bent, his back against the arm of the couch. Her hand was in his. His fingers moved slowly through her hair, like it was a routine. Not hesitant, not nervous, familiar. The TV was on, but muted, and they weren't talking. They were just being comfortable, like people who'd done this before. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to, because the moment Laura saw my reflection in the mirror, she froze. Her eyes widened. She stood too fast, tripping a little as she untangled herself from the rug. Her face paled like she was watching something unravel. "It's not what you think," she said instantly. She stepped toward me, but I didn't move. Funny how that line, "it's not what you think," always shows up too late. Nobody ever says that before the mistake. But here's the thing. I hadn't said anything. I hadn't even asked a question. And that was the answer. He stood too, slower than her, adjusting his shirt, not saying a word. No apology. No tension in his face. He looked bored, relaxed even, like he'd expected this moment eventually and had already made peace with it. She glanced back at him and then at me. He just came over to talk. That's all. I didn't know you'd be home. I gave a small nod. Not because I believed her, I didn't, but because I needed to move. I stepped past them both and walked into the kitchen. My throat was dry, my chest hollow. I grabbed a glass, filled it with tap water, and drank. My hand trembled slightly, so I used my other one to steady it. Laura followed me in, her voice shaking now. "Mark, please, don't jump to conclusions. You don't understand what this is. What this is. Not what just happened. Not I'm sorry. Not even I messed up. Just this." This was the word she chose. I turned and looked at her. Her eyes were puffy, like she'd been crying, or maybe she cried after seeing me. I didn't know. Her mouth opened and closed, searching for something to say. I gave her the space. I waited, and she said nothing. That man, her man, let's call it what it was, lingered in the doorway for a second before quietly saying, "I'll go." He didn't look at me when he said it, just at her. She didn't stop him, didn't chase after him, didn't even flinch when the door clicked shut behind him. After that, we stood in silence. I wanted to ask every obvious question. How long? Why? How did we go from "I love you" to this? But I didn't, because something inside me had already shifted. The ache I thought would destroy me felt distant, like it had passed through a filter. What replaced it was quieter but heavier, a dense understanding that something irreversible had taken root. I finally broke the silence. "Is this still happening?" I asked. She blinked. "What? You and him? Is this current? Or was today a reunion?" She stared down at her feet. "It's complicated." That answer used to work on me. Back when I wanted to believe there were gray areas. Back when I thought love meant always waiting for the full picture. Now it just felt like a delay tactic. I nodded again. "Got it. Mark," she said, stepping forward. "Please let me explain." "I saw enough," I replied. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just walked past her, up the stairs and into our bedroom. I didn't pack a bag. I just lay down on the bed, still fully dressed, and stared at the ceiling like I'd done 100 times since the ring hit the floor. She didn't follow, didn't knock, didn't come in to make it worse or better. Just silence. Later that night, I heard the sound of her moving downstairs. The fridge door, a glass, the creak of the hallway floor. Then the door to the guest room opened and shut. That's where she slept. And me? I lay awake again, staring into the dark, remembering the look on her face when she saw me in that mirror. Not guilt, not fear, but inconvenience, like I had interrupted something sacred. The next morning, the house smelled like coffee. Not the kind Laura usually made, French press, dark roast, almond milk on the side, but the emergency kind, the just hit a wall kind. Burnt drip from the old machine I didn't even realize we still had under the sink. She was at the table when I came downstairs, wearing a hoodie and no makeup, hair tied in a loose knot like she used to on Sundays, back when we still had Sunday rituals. She looked up when she heard me and said, "Can we talk?" I said nothing, just grabbed a glass of water from the sink. She took that as a yes. "I scheduled us an appointment," she said, folding her hands. "For therapy." I raised an eyebrow, still drinking. "Us?" "Yes, a couples therapist. Her name's Dana. She's supposed to be really good. Booked solid for weeks, but she had a cancellation and I took it. Tomorrow, late afternoon." She said it all in one breath, like reading a script she had practiced overnight. I stared at her for a moment, unsure whether to laugh or walk out. "You want to do therapy?" I said flatly. "Now." She nodded. "I know how this looks, Mark, but I want to fix this. I want us to fix this." I almost respected the performance. She wasn't even pretending to deny what I saw, just skipping over it like it was a minor obstacle, a pothole in the road. I wondered if the man from the gallery was a topic she planned to bring up in the session. I wondered if she even remembered that I had seen them, in my t-shirt on our rug, with his hand in her hair like he owned her. "Okay," I said finally. "I'll go." And I did. The office was in a renovated townhouse with exposed brick walls, abstract art, and a diffuser puffing out lavender. A little bowl of mints sat by the door next to a sign that said, "Take what you need." I didn't take one. The therapist, Dana, was warm, middle-aged, calm voice, glasses low on her nose. She welcomed us in, offered tea, asked about parking, then opened a notebook with a practiced smile. "So," she said, "what brings you both here?" Laura started speaking immediately. It was like watching an actress step into character. She talked about how distant things had felt lately, how our communication had broken down, how she was struggling with feeling invisible, and how she wasn't proud of some recent decisions, but she wanted to be honest about the emotional strain she was under. She never said affair. She never said betrayal. She never said his name. To her, this wasn't an earthquake. It was a communication glitch. Dana nodded. She jotted things down. She asked questions about our history, our routines, our love languages. Laura leaned in, eager, open. I sat back, arms crossed, watching the whole thing like it was a stage play I hadn't auditioned for. When Dana turned to me, I kept it short. "I'm here because I said I would be." Laura's head whipped slightly, just a flick. But she didn't interrupt. Dana tried again. "Mark, can you describe what you're feeling right now?" I paused, then said, "I feel like I'm being asked to solve a puzzle that someone else already burned." Laura's lips tightened, but she said nothing. Dana wrote something. "Would you say you feel betrayed?" I gave a humorless laugh. "That's one word for it." Laura finally spoke up. "I didn't plan for any of this, Mark. I didn't wake up one day and decide to blow up our marriage. I was lonely. I was hurting. And you didn't tell me," I said quietly. "You told him." That shut her up. The rest of the session blurred together. Dana suggested setting boundaries. Laura suggested intentional time together. I said I didn't know what any of that meant when one of us had already decided the marriage was flexible. Dana wrapped it up with homework. Something about journaling what we hope to rebuild. When we left, Laura looked hopeful. "I think that went well." I didn't respond. She tried again. "Don't you think it was good we went?" I shrugged. "It was informative." "Mark," she said, stopping beside the car. "I'm trying." That was the first time I really looked at her in days. And I saw it. Not remorse, not guilt, just fear. Fear of the fallout, of being alone, of losing the comfort of the life we'd built. Not me, just the image of us. We drove home in silence. Over the next few days, she doubled down on the performance. She cooked more, sat beside me on the couch like it was natural, asked about my day even when I gave one-word answers. She even suggested we do a puzzle one night, some old thousand-piece landscape we never finished. I stared at the box and said, "I don't think anything's missing from that one." She didn't respond. At night, she slept in the guest room. Not because I told her to, but because she understood there was a line now. An invisible one, like yellow caution tape between our lives. She left the room cleaner than usual. Fluffed pillows. No clutter. Her phone stayed face down even though I wasn't looking anymore. Once, I walked past and caught a glimpse of her screen lighting up. A message from a contact labeled J. Just an initial. Too vague to be obvious. Too clean to be casual. She turned the phone over before I could see more. I didn't ask, because by then, I wasn't looking for answers. I already knew what I needed to know. The next therapy session was more of the same. Laura talked, Dana listened, I observed. When I did speak, it was in cold, measured sentences. Laura cried once. Dana handed her a tissue. She wiped her face but never once said I'm sorry. Because to Laura, there was no singular sin. Just a gradual erosion. A we problem. A shared responsibility for her decision to fall into someone else's arms. She wanted redemption, but not accountability. Afterward, she asked if I wanted to grab dinner. I said no. At home, she sat on the porch with a glass of wine and stared into the dark like it held the answer. Maybe she was mourning something, or maybe she was just calculating her next move. I watched her from the window and felt nothing. Not hate, not grief, not rage, just detachment. Like watching the final scene of a show you already stopped caring about. The plot twisted too far, the characters too unrecognizable. Later that night, I opened the notes Dana had given us. Something about rebuilding trust through shared vulnerability. I closed the folder and dropped it in the drawer. You can't rebuild trust on a foundation of denial. And you can't share vulnerability with someone who's still hiding the truth. It was a Tuesday, cold and cloudless. The kind of morning where the sun shines just enough to fool you into thinking it's warmer than it is. I was driving over to the house, our house technically, to pick up the last of my things. A few boxes from the garage. Some paperwork I'd forgotten in the office drawer. Maybe a sweatshirt or two. I'd already started sleeping at a rental across town. A furnished one-bedroom with bare walls and no memories. It wasn't home, but it was quiet. I told Laura I'd be by after 9. She said that was fine. I didn't expect a parade. I didn't expect her to be there. What I didn't expect was him. When I pulled up, the first thing I noticed wasn't the car, his car, parked crooked in the driveway. It wasn't even the sound of music coming faintly through the open kitchen window. It was the mug. My mug. Navy blue, chipped on the handle. World's okayest golfer. Printed in faded white letters. It had been a gag gift from my brother after a horrible 18 holes at his bachelor party. I never used it much, but it was mine. And he was holding it. Sitting on the porch like he belonged there. Ankles crossed. Coffee in one hand. Phone in the other. Relaxed. Comfortable. Like this was his Tuesday routine. He didn't flinch when he saw me. Barely glanced up. Just kept scrolling like I was the mailman or a neighbor stopping by to borrow a rake. I parked, got out slowly, locked the door without taking my eyes off him. Morning, he said, not smiling, not sarcastic, just normal. And somehow that hit harder than anything else. Didn't know you were home, he added, taking a sip. He didn't offer the mug back. Didn't move. He just sat there. On the porch I built with Laura's dad 5 summers ago. On the steps I once repainted while she brought me lemonade in cut-off shorts and bare feet. He sat where I used to sit. I didn't answer. Just walked past him, up the steps, past the place where his elbow rested on the railing. I didn't even knock. I used my key. Still worked. That bothered me more than I expected. Inside it was warmer, too warm. She always overcompensated when she was nervous. Turned the thermostat up. Lit candles in every corner. Made things smell like comfort even when everything was falling apart. And there she was, Laura, in the kitchen, barefoot, wearing an oversized sweater and leggings. Her hair was damp, freshly showered. She turned when she heard the door and froze for half a second before her voice slid into that familiar, practiced tone. "Oh, you're early," I said after 9. She checked the wall clock. "It's 8:53. I let the silence answer for me. She wiped her hands on a dish towel and tried again. "I didn't expect you to come inside. It's still my house," I said. "Technically." She opened her mouth, closed it, then nodded. "Right?" I walked past her to the office. The boxes were still where I left them. Labeled. Neat. Untouched. Like she couldn't bring herself to move them or didn't care to. As I carried the first one back toward the front door, she spoke again. Mark. Don't. It's not what it looks like. I actually laughed at that. Couldn't help it. You need a new line, I said. Seriously. You've worn that one out. She winced but didn't argue. He was just dropping something off, she said. Yeah, I replied, setting the box down and turning to her. His dignity, maybe? Her face twisted. You don't have to be cruel. You're right, I said. I don't. And I wasn't. Not really. Could have yelled. Could have listed every betrayal in alphabetical order. But the truth is, nothing she said would have changed the scene I walked into. Him on my porch, drinking from my mug, in a place that used to be ours. You don't scream at a flood for drowning your house. You just stop going back for the furniture. I grabbed the rest of the boxes in silence. 2 trips, no more. The whole time, she stood there like she wanted to say something but couldn't find the right script. I didn't help her. At one point, she whispered, "We're on a break." I stopped in the hallway, looked at her. "No," I said. "You're on a break. I'm done." She looked like she wanted to cry, but no tears came. Maybe she'd already cried them all out. Maybe she thought they'd still work on me. They didn't. When I stepped outside with the last load, he was still there. Still sipping. Still scrolling. He looked up just as I passed. "You know," he said casually, "we're not trying to hurt you." That stopped me cold. I turned to him, box still in my arms. "Don't flatter yourself," I said. "You're not that important." He didn't reply, didn't argue, just went back to his phone. That's what got me. Not the cheating, not the lying, not even the coffee. The ease. The way he sat on that porch like he'd earned it. Like I was the ghost, not him. I loaded the last box into the trunk, shut it, and leaned against the car for a moment. The sun had moved higher, casting light on the porch rail, catching the rim of the mug he still held. My mug. It hit me then. Not anger. Not heartbreak. Clarity. This wasn't my house anymore. Not really. Not just because of him. Because of her. Because of all the little choices that led to this, the ones she made long before I ever noticed. When I got in the car and started the engine, I didn't look back. No cinematic glances. No one chasing me down the driveway. Just a porch, a mug, and a man who would one day understand that if she could do this with him, she could do it to him. But that wasn't my story to follow. Not anymore. A week later, I got a message from an unknown number. "Hi, I'm Savannah. I think we've both been lied to." I stared at it for a while, then replied, "Go on." What followed was a 10-minute call that reshaped everything. Savannah was his girlfriend. Not ex. Not former fling. Actual live-in girlfriend. They'd been together over a year. Shared bills, shared friends, even talked about getting a dog. She found out about Laura the same way I found out about everything else, by accident. A photo popped up on his laptop. Laura and him, kissing in the front seat of a car. She thought it was old. It wasn't. There were more beach days, art events, dinners with wine glasses tilted just out of frame. He had told Savannah he was traveling for work. Those weekends, he was with my wife. Savannah wasn't angry. She sounded tired, like someone who'd been fighting a battle long before she realized she'd lost. "I thought you deserved to know," she said. I thanked her. Then I sent Laura the photos. No message. No commentary. Just the truth. She texted that night. "I can explain." Then, "Please talk to me." Then silence. I didn't respond, because for once, it wasn't my job to start the conversation. The divorce moved quickly. No long speeches. No drawn-out apologies. Just signatures, silence, and 2 sets of keys changing hands. Laura faded from my daily life, though not from my thoughts. At first, I'd still check her profile late at night, scrolling through carefully posed smiles and filtered brunch photos. Looking for regret, I guess. Instead, I found performances. And then one day, I saw her in a photo with him again. Not kissing this time. just sitting beside each other on some trendy rooftop bar. Her hand on his knee, his face turned away, staring at his phone. She looked hollow, not sad, just misplaced. I didn't feel satisfaction. Not exactly, just confirmation. A month later, I met Savannah in person. We didn't plan to, it just sort of happened. Coffee turned into a walk. A walk turned into talking about everything. The lies, the blind spots, the ways we both ignored our guts. She was smart, honest, sharp around the edges, but in a way that felt earned. We weren't trying to save each other, just understand what the hell we'd been through. 2 months later, we went to my uncle's old lake house, the one I used to escape to when I needed quiet. Only this time, the silence didn't feel empty, felt peaceful. One afternoon, Laura emailed me. She asked, "If you don't need the ring, could you send it back?" I stared at the message for a while. Then I typed only one line in return. "I need it, to remember who never deserved it." Then I hit send. And that was the end.